What was it about Melissa's story that you said you had to be involved in this project?
You know, um, it was everything about Melissa's story. She checked all the dots, right, of the ideal culprit. And she checks all the reasons why, people are on death row in the United States.
Hmm.
She is brown, she could as well be black.
Hmm.
She is poor. She had a court appointed attorney, who didn't do his job. And then she was in the midst of the reelection of a DA who subsequently, was charged, for corruption and bribery and is now serving a 13-year prison sentence. So, I mean, just the entire thing just kept going on and on and on. And, you know, uh, you're just thinking, this is just exactly the reason why there are so many, flawed characters, people like her in American prisons.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, what I always say is it's not that the system is broken.
Mm.
It's a system was specifically designed to put people like Melissa, in prison.
Right.
That's what it is, you
That.
know. I mean, and if people are asking themselves, I mean, I'm just going to say, check it out for yourself. You're
Mm.
not going to find one person who has money on death row.
Mm.
What you will find are blacks, brown,
Right.
poor,
Right.
mentally disabled, even though they're not supposed to go. It's against the law and they're not supposed to be on death row, but a lot of them are. And this is what you're going to find. So, right now, you did mention that, yes, I mean, the timing is just quite extraordinary because, we're talking a lot about, Black Lives Matter and police brutality. But what about, the brutality
Mm.
of our judicial system?
System. Yes, definitely. And speaking of, this documentary explores that, right? Because I believe that Melissa didn't get a fair trial, right? Like you said, her attorney didn't bring forth like key witnesses in her case. Like the whole thing was a miss to me. I was like baffled at like this woman is going to sit on death row due to the fact that she didn't have, the right representation because she couldn't afford it, right?
I mean,
Um,
a fair trial is an understatement. I
mm,
mean, could it,
miscarriage of justice.
oh, it's just a complete miscarriage of justice. I mean,
Definitely.
she couldn't, she didn't stand a chance for, yeah, she didn't stand a chance.
What did you think when you first heard? How did you come to learn about Melissa's story? How did you find out about her story?
I was assigned to do a documentary about women on death row
Mm,
for a French TV channel.
wow.
And I had decided to interview four different women, and Melissa was one of them.
Hmm.
But there was very little about her, in the media at all.
Right.
And she was basic. It was basically kind of like just another case of child abuse,
Hmm.
and when you read, what was written about her on internet, it was basically okay, Hispanic women, too many children, on drugs, and basically, she lashed out on her little one and killed her, basically. So you're just like, okay,
Right.
I've known this story, right? I mean, I've heard this story before.
Mhm.
But when I got there, when I got to Harlingen, which is um, a border town in
Right.
Texas,
Right.
bordering, Mexico, uh, I met her family, and they said to me, "You're the first person in 13 years to come to us and ask us any questions, period." And
Wow.
I said to them, "Well, what about her lawyer?" And they said, "Oh, he never asked us any questions. He never wanted to meet with us." A lot of the children, they stated that, they saw Mariah fall down a flight of stairs. And, we all know it was an accident, and we all know, and, would you like to see the stairs? So they drove me to the stairs, and, I saw those stairs who were just, scary and crazy. And, how could CPS, ever, allow a family
To,
of, 12 kids,
hmm.
to actually live in such a dump,
Right.
with those scary, scary, scary stairs. So, and then they went on and they're like, yeah, the lawyer, he went to work for the DA, and it's very corrupted here, and the DA, is now in prison for bribery, extortion. I mean, it just went on and on. And I was just like, this is just, I can't even believe it. And then the next day, I
Hmm.
met Melissa.
Wow.
I actually drove to Gatesville, Texas, which is like 8 hours away from Harlingen, and that's one of the main reason why her family, never visits her.
Right.
And I was the very first reporter she had ever met. I mean, she had never been interviewed in her life,
That's so
and
baffling to me.
I know, I know, it's just unbelievable that for like 12 years. I mean, she had been on death row 11 years already. And I'm like the very first person inquiring,
Right.
and from just the very first time I saw her, just the very, first minute, I mean, I was just like, this can't be. I
Right.
don't believe this,
Right.
and just the way she answered, and she was so like, in a way at peace where what that basically she was going to die, and that she is, there's a sense about Melissa that she specifically knows she has no voice,
Mm,
and her life doesn't count,
wow.
and that that's it. It's just pure injustice, and from the moment she was born, she was subject to abuse, and and that's it, and she's just going to die, and that's the sense I got from her,
Right.
that she was doomed in a
Mm-hmm.
way,
Mm-hmm.
and when I met her, she had never seen any of her children again.
Wow.
Yeah, in 11 years.
And it's so interesting. I have so many questions. First of all, when you talk to the children and you read the articles online on the internet, you gauge your opinion, you kind of know, like, okay, this is what this is about. When you speak to the children and they tell you, you know, nobody had ever interviewed them and you get this new information, what did you learn from the children? Because that's who didn't have a voice in her case, I feel like, because they loved their mom. Due to the watching the documentary, you can see the love and the hurt, from losing their mom, despite the circumstances they were living in, right? It's like they didn't care about that. Their loss and their hurt was from losing their mom. Um, and of course their sister. But can you talk to us a little bit about when you interviewed those children for the first time? What did you learn about Melissa from the children?
Okay, so interviewing the children was a very, I mean, everything was hard in this
Mhm.
documentary. Don't get me wrong. Just
Right,
getting anybody to speak, because when you have someone on death row, it's like an atomic bomb in a family.
right,
Okay,
right.
I mean, the collateral damage is beyond anything you can imagine. And those children had been separated
Mhm.
and were all over, the state of Texas, and her eldest son John, when he found out that his mother had been convicted to death row, he tried to commit suicide, and just basically run in front of a car. She had another son who tried to hang himself.
Mm,
I mean, it's just severe. Okay, so her eldest daughter Daniela was someone that I really wanted to speak to her, because she was the one taking care of the children.
mm,
And it was a typical, Mexican family where, the eldest take care of the youngest ones. There are so many children.
right.
And she had been so, I mean, it was hard to get in touch with her. I mean, it basically took me like a good 6 months to, you know, for her to trust me. And I asked her all these questions. I'm like, well, did you ever see, was
Mhm.
your mom ever violent? I mean, of course, by that time, I had access to all the CPS records
Okay.
where, for over 10 years, they were monitoring that family.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just never any signs, nothing about violence. I mean, yes, there was a lot of neglect,
Mm-hmm.
which, when you're poor, I mean, the uh, neglect is a very thin line.
Right.
because there are too many children. They live in a dump. I mean, it's just okay. And she just kept saying, my mother, I mean, she never disciplined us. My mother, I mean, I was the one taking care of the kids all the time. I saw this, I saw that, and nothing happened.
Mm,
Nothing. So then, I went on and I went to San Antonio and met some of the other children
mm-hmm,
who were in foster care,
mm-hmm.
and that's when I met Bobby.
I loved
And
him so much.
yeah, Bobby is just so amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
Bobby had always been very close to his mom, and he said, I mean, I was there. She was, Mariah was with us all the time, and I never noticed anything,
Right.
but we know that she fell. We know that she fell, and of course, you can see it in the film. There's those videos
Right.
taken by,
Mm-hmm.
those are Megan Law interviews, basically, which they're taken by, CPS people and the police, and the children state that
Right.
they saw their little sister fall down the stairs. Yet, the lawyer in her case decided to completely dismiss that
Right.
and not have any of those children come to the stand. So in the film, you don't see a lot of the kids because I just couldn't interview, just everybody.
Right.
I mean, even though I did, I just couldn't edit it, right? But I mean, what you see is what I got. That basically, uh, there was never enough. There was just nothing that the children had seen.
Mm-hmm.
That could have explained
Right.
the bruising or anything.
Right.
So all of a sudden, you get this case, and you're thinking, wow, there's a woman on death row. There's not one person, one, who has ever witnessed her being abusive.
Elusive. Right. Right.
There's been no investigation. They just assume she's the one. Then of course, you get, a forensic expert at trial who says it's the worst case of child abuse she's ever seen. But at the same time, I interviewed another forensic expert who tells me exactly the opposite, who tells me, she has all the sign of an accident. And
Right.
the bruising on her body is actually a result of the blunt head trauma that she suffered. So just this entire case is just a disaster.
It is. It is. I want to ask you a little bit before we move on with the kids. In the documentary, it's revealed or It comes up from the family about this relationship with one of the daughters in Mariah, and that she could have been the one who possibly did it, and the mom is sitting on death row due to in protecting her child and not wanting to say anything. Multiple kids stated that this daughter, one of the oldest daughters, didn't connect with Mariah and had like a little bit of a, you know, tiff there. Where do we
She was
stand?
fed up. She was fed
Right.
up of taking care of the kids. I mean,
Where
she
do
was
we
a
stand on that?
teenager, and
What is that theory today? Where do we stand with that? Is there anything that's come of that since the documentary has come out?
well, yeah, in terms of, the family is really like kind of fighting right now.
Wow.
If there was someone
Mm-hmm.
abusive in that family, it was definitely Alex.
Right.
And she actually told that to the original private investigator. She said that, and again, the lawyer decided, not to mention that,
Right.
to just put that aside, which could have completely changed everything for Melissa. I mean, all of a sudden, that's it. There's no more death row, no more nothing.
Right.
Okay. But he decided, and that was very strange, to not mention that information that he knew, and that multiple children had told him
Mm.
that one of the teenage daughters,
Mm-hmm.
Alexandra, was actually being abusive. Um, so now, I mean, she says, "Oh well, I was actually abusive to everybody," or I was the mean one. I was fed up, and it's hard, because for 12 years, a lot of these kids have basically, I wouldn't say given up on their mom, but in a way, yes. When you
Mm-hmm.
have someone on death row, you do.
Right.
There's no hope.
Right.
And Alex is still their sister, you know? So the conflict is there. But no, I mean, there's not going to be anything. If you're asking me in terms of an investigation,
Mhm.
oh no, nothing. I mean, that's it. Melissa is, I mean, they couldn't bring any new elements to the case. And she lost her last appeal at the Fifth Circuit. Now
Right.
it's up to the US Supreme Court.
Yes.
And if they do decide to hear it, then yes, it could come up. But, the fact that, Alex would, uh, ever, be interrogated or, charged
Right.
is, is non-existent. It's not going to happen.
Right. And speaking of some hope, right, for Melissa, like you stated, the U.S. Supreme Court is her last hope at, some getting a new trial or some justice for her. Do you hope that this documentary will? I mean, because it's already catching a lot of buzz. People are talking about this documentary. You're going on the Innocent Project's Jason Flomes, I believe. You're going on his podcast soon. It's garnering a lot of nationwide attention because I had no idea about this story, right? And like you said, she hadn't been interviewed. And I believe there are a lot more Melissas, right? They may not be on death row, but they're, likely to.
There are so
So
many
many more.
Melissas out there.
So many more. Sabrina, is it your hope that this documentary will help shed light on Melissa's story and get her some justice and also be able to help those other Melissas out there?
I've been praying for that.
Hmm.
That's been the reason why, for 3 years I've been like a mad woman doing this film and just, uh, investigating this case and trying to make as much noise as I could.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, it's actually getting out there. And my biggest hope is for this story not to be mine anymore.
Mm.
Yours,
Right.
you guys, everybody,
Right.
like all of a sudden that, people will advocate and will say her name
Yes.
and, and realize that, there are so many more like her and
Hmm.
that the system is so unjust and death row is so inhumane.
Right.
I mean, when you have so many people in prison, just to start, let's not even talk about, death row.
Right.
You basically had to agree to a plea deal because otherwise they would have gotten life, right?
Right. Right.
That
Exactly.
happens all the time.
Hmm.
And the stats, I mean, speak for themselves. I mean, if you go to trial in the US, 95% of all cases are won by the DA's office.
Right.
You don't stand a chance. So, yes, I mean, my hope right now is that people will watch the film.
Mhm.
It will create a lot of buzz. Um, I am hoping that the Supreme Court will hear her case because 2 years ago, four judges unanimously reversed her case.
Right.
And in February, all of us, a very, very divided court, reversed it again. And we're talking the most conservative court in the US, the
Right.
Fifth Circuit, like in Texas. So yes, I am really hopeful for that, and I'm hopeful that people will not allow her to be executed.
Right. Right. So good. I want to first ask you, Sabrina. Well, not first, but I also want to ask you, with Melissa's case, and being that Texas has this storied reputation of executions, right? What can we do, right? What can people like myself and viewers that are going to watch this that have not watched it after they watch this documentary? What can they do to help Melissa in getting some justice? Is there anybody that we can write to? Is it what do you know options that we have in raising our voice, raising awareness for her as well? Like you said, you don't want it to just be your story. You want it to be ours as well, the
Exactly.
viewer's story. What can people do to help Melissa?
Well, there's a petition online, so
Hmm.
we need to have a lot of I mean, big numbers.
Right.
So that's you can find that. You can there's been people in the last 48 hours reached out to me. So many, what can we do? So there's a GoFundMe going on.
Wow.
We're trying to get Melissa, maybe new lawyers, or
Yeah.
maybe we're just it's just all in the thinking right now, but you're going to see that coming up soon.
Wow.
There's an hashtag, save Melissa Lucio, free Melissa
Okay.
Lucio, just like basically like what I was saying, say her name needs to be known.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
Her name needs to be known, like Julius Jones is
Mm-hmm.
known, like Rodney Reed is known. Those guys would have been executed a long time ago if it wasn't for the people, for the public,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's what's saving their lives right now, is
Oh
that
yeah.
people are watching out saying, no, we're not going
Right.
to let you do this. Okay,
Right.
you're not going to kill these people. There's so
Mm-mm.
many people being killed right now. So sign the petition, go on social media, follow. Soon there's going to be a GoFundMe. You can also write to Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
She's in Mountain View unit in Texas. It's very easy to find the address. You can also, there's an app called JPay where you can send her, a message. I mean, she needs all the hope in the world. She's been, in solitary confinement.
Wow.
Yes, in the last 14 years. People need to realize what that means. I mean, when you are on death row, you are never allowed any human contact ever. So she has been in solitary confinement. She is allowed to go outside twice a week alone for 1 hour.
Wow.
She does have friends, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I think she has, but she talks to them through the walls. There's no human contact. She hasn't had a lunch or dinner, or shared anything or touched someone in 14 years. So all the letters that you guys can send,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just it would mean the world to her, especially for someone who hasn't been loved a lot in her life.
Right. Right. Sabrina, when is the last time have you spoken to Melissa since the documentary came out on Hulu? Have and what are her thoughts if you have